The year was 1876, and the wind sweeping through the Arizona territory carried the scent of smoke, blood, and something older, something the land hadn't forgotten. Evelyn McCall's boots scraped over cracked earth, her breath ragged, chest heaving with each step. Behind her, the homestead burned, a glowing scar against the night sky. The only home she'd ever known, reduced to ash and ember. Flames licked at the stars as if to burn the heavens themselves. And behind those flames, hidden in shadows, were the men who'd taken everything. She didn't look back. The rifle in her hands trembled with each stride, slick with blood that wasn't hers, her father's, maybe her brother's too. The screams had faded minutes ago, but they still echoed in her ears. She could still hear her mother calling her name, cut short by a sound she'd never forget. A sharp whistle ripped through the night. She dropped instinctively. A bullet hissed through the darkness, kicking up dust inches from where her head had been. Evelyn scrambled to her feet and ran harder, the ache in her thighs drowned by sheer terror. The terrain grew rough, rocks and cacti jutting from the earth like bones. But she didn't care. Ahead, the land opened into the canyons. No settler wandered there. The old folks said it was haunted, sacred, cursed. She hoped the stories were true, better spirits than outlaws. Hours passed, or maybe just minutes. It was hard to tell in the chaos. The moon overhead dipped behind cloud cover, plunging the world into dim silver shadows. Her breath came in shallow bursts. Her fingers clutched the rifle so tightly she thought her bones might break. When she finally collapsed, it was at the foot of a dry arroyo, an old creek bed surrounded by tall stone walls. She pressed herself into the earth, trembling, every muscle screaming for rest. The silence that settled around her wasn't peace. It was heavy, watching. The desert didn't offer comfort, it simply waited. A rustle. Her head snapped up. Evelyn lifted her rifle, shoulders tense, eyes scanning the darkness. Nothing. Then, movement. A silhouette, tall and still, stepped from the shadows near a cluster of rocks. Not one of the men. This one didn't carry a rifle, didn't speak, just stood there. Moonlight kissed his features, dark bronze skin, long black hair tied back with strips of leather, feathers catching the faint breeze. He wore no hat, no boots, just soft moccasins that made no sound. He stared at her with eyes that didn't flinch, eyes that had seen fire before. "Don't move," Evelyn said, her voice cracking. He didn't. She tried to hold the rifle steady, but her arms shook. She had the upper hand, and yet she knew. If he wanted to vanish, he could. If he wanted her dead, she already would be. "You lost," he said calmly. Evelyn swallowed, her lips cracked from dust and fear. They killed my family." The man didn't react. No pity, no surprise. Just that same steady gaze. Then, without a word, he turned and walked away. She blinked. "Hey!" she shouted. "Where are you going?" He didn't answer. But something, maybe instinct, maybe desperation, made her rise and follow. Her legs protested, her lungs burned, but she didn't stop. The canyon swallowed them whole. He moved like he belonged to the wind, like the rocks knew his name. Evelyn struggled behind him, tripping more than once, until they reached a narrow passage between stone walls. A fire glowed beyond it. Figures sat around it, silent, still, watching her with unreadable faces. The man stopped and turned. "You may stay, if you bring no more fire with you." "What's your name?" she asked, heart still racing. "Dakota," he replied. "And you?" "Evelyn." He nodded once. "Then rest, Evelyn. Tomorrow we decide if you are shadow or flame." Morning came slow to the canyon, light creeping like a wary guest through the stone corridors, casting long shadows that clung to every crevice. Evelyn awoke to the scent of smoke and sage, her muscles stiff, her skin dusted with a thin layer of red grit. The events of the night before weren't a dream. The rifle beside her, the dirt under her nails, the blistered ache in her chest, too real to be imagined. She pushed herself up from the hide mat she'd been given and stepped outside the small lean-to tent. The camp stirred silently. No one greeted her. No one smiled. She wasn't one of them. Not yet. Dakota sat cross-legged near the fire, sharpening a long, curved blade with rhythmic precision. When his eyes met hers, he nodded toward the edge of the camp. "Come here," he said. "You must learn, or you won't survive the next time they come." Evelyn didn't argue. She followed him through the winding canyon, deeper into the wild. Her boots scraped over stone and sand, echoing between high walls. Hawks circled overhead, their shadows sweeping the earth like ghosts. He taught her in silence at first, how to walk without being heard, how to spot signs, cracked branches, turnstones, shallow footprints in dust. He handed her a bow. She looked at it like it was a relic from another time. "I've never used one," she admitted. "You will," he said. Hours passed. Arrows flew. Most missed. Dakota didn't scold her, but neither did he praise. He simply watched, studied, waited. By midday, Evelyn's arms ached, her fingers raw. Her shot finally struck the outer bark of a mesquite tree. She turned to him, breathless. "That count?" He tilted his head. It missed less than the others. A strange sort of pride tugged at her lips, but it vanished the moment she saw smoke in the distance, thin and rising. Dakota noticed too. His face hardened. "Scouts." Her stomach twisted. "Outlaws?" He nodded once, already moving. They returned to the camp in a hush of urgency. Whispers rippled through the gathered people like wind through dry grass. The elders sat in a circle. Dakota spoke in their tongue, low and firm. Evelyn caught only fragments of English. "Tracks. Riders. Soon." She stood apart, unwanted but not ignored. Eyes watched her, not with hate, but with something colder. Mistrust. Dakota approached her after the council ended. "You must decide, Evelyn. Are you a guest or one of us?" She looked toward the horizon. Her home was ash. Her family, bones. There was no one else. No place else. "I want to fight." Dakota said nothing, only handed her the bow again. That night she sat by the fire, fletching arrows, her fingers steady despite the tremor in her soul. An old man sat beside her, wrinkled hands, eyes like flint. "You carry ghosts," he rasped. Evelyn didn't flinch. "Don't we all?" He nodded, then pointed to the scarred sky. "Out there, they ride with death in their mouths. But this canyon, this land, it remembers. It speaks. If you listen, it'll tell you how to make them bleed." The flames cracked between them, and Evelyn listened. Somewhere in the dark beyond the canyon, hooves drummed against the ground like war drums. And death was coming. The warning came with the howl of a coyote. By dawn, Dakota had already vanished into the high ridges, a silent shadow scouting the outer trails. Evelyn stood with her bow strung tight, her fingers blistered but ready. The others prepared in silence. Every spearhead checked, every rifle cleaned, every footstep counted. The canyon wasn't just shelter. It was trap, memory, weapon. And today, it would be all three. Evelyn crouched behind a jagged slab of limestone near the southern pass, eyes fixed on the valley below. Her heart thudded like war drums, her breath shallow. She'd seen blood before, her own family's, but this would be different. This time, she would return it. Hoofbeats broke the silence first, distant but growing. Then came the silhouettes, riders, 11 of them. One rode ahead of the others, black coat flapping behind him like wings. Crow. She knew that shape, that gait, the devil who led the men that burned her life to ash. They had tracked her, again. But this time, they were not hunting prey. They were walking into fire. Dakota's voice echoed in her memory. They will come proud, loud, arrogant. But the land does not fear pride. The signal was simple, a hawk's cry. It pierced the sky, and the trap snapped shut. Rocks tumbled from above, thundering into the narrow pass. 2 horses reared and fled, riders thrown into the dust. Arrows followed, silent death from every ledge and shadow. Evelyn fired her first shot, missed. A second, closer. A third, struck. The outlaw screamed as he fell, blood dark against the sand. Chaos exploded. Gunfire tore the morning apart. Smoke coiled through the air. Warriors moved like wind, striking fast, fading faster. Evelyn ducked behind stone, loading, firing, moving. Each shot a promise. Each arrow a scream returned. Crow barked orders, pulling his men into a tight knot. "Hold the ridge! They're just ghosts and savages!" Evelyn heard it. Savages. The word tasted like rot. She rose behind a boulder, aimed at the voice that had mocked her pain. She pulled the trigger. The shot struck his shoulder, spinning him from his saddle. He fell hard, rolling through the dirt. Not dead, not yet, but bleeding. A scream pulled her attention left. One of the younger warriors, just a boy, had been hit. Evelyn ran to him, dragging him back behind cover, pressing cloth to the wound. His eyes locked with hers. He did not cry out. He only nodded. She rose again, rifle raised. The next outlaw came fast, gun drawn. Evelyn had no time to aim, but she didn't need to. Dakota dropped from above like a shadow with weight. His tomahawk struck bone, clean and final. The man hit the ground and did not rise. Dakota met her gaze. "You hesitate less." "I shoot straighter too," she said. A crack of laughter escaped him. First one she'd heard. But the moment shattered as another explosion ripped through the canyon. Smoke poured from the east ridge. More riders. Reinforcements. The tide was turning. Dakota grabbed her arm. "Time to fall back." They ran, weaving through narrow paths, bullets kicking up dirt around them. Evelyn dove behind a rock, panting, blood on her sleeve. Not hers, but it didn't matter anymore. This was no longer about revenge. It was about survival, and the land would choose who it let live. The canyon breathed like a beast, low, deep, restless. Night fell, and the land drank the blood spilled by day. Smoke still clung to the air, thin and bitter. Evelyn sat by a shallow fire, the flickering light dancing over her dirt-smeared face, hands trembling not from fear, but from exhaustion. She had survived, again. But survival wasn't victory. Across from her, Dakota cleaned his war axe, eyes fixed not on the steel, but on something far away. Maybe memory, maybe ghosts. "They'll come again," he said. Evelyn nodded. "Then let them." The boy who had been wounded, Chaska, slept nearby, his arm bound, feverish. The elders moved quietly, whispering in Lakota, mixing herbs and burning sage. They had seen war before. This was not new, but Evelyn was, and so was the rage in her chest. "Crow won't stop," she said. "I put a bullet in his shoulder, and he still came at us." Dakota looked up, the fire reflecting in his eyes. "He is not a man, he is a wound, and wounds fester." She didn't understand all of what he meant, but she understood enough. Crow wasn't after land or loot. He was after silence. He didn't want survivors. Evelyn was a memory he couldn't erase. That terrified him more than death. A rustle from the dark pulled their attention. A rider approached, slow and alone. Evelyn raised her rifle, but Dakota didn't move. "It's Wombly," he said. The scout dismounted, face grim. "They're circling east, regrouping. 20, maybe more." Dakota's jaw clenched. "He brings everyone." "They're bringing torches," Wombly added, "and barrels of oil." Evelyn's stomach dropped. They're going to burn the canyon." Silence fell. The canyon wasn't just a battlefield. It was home, sacred ground, a place where bones whispered and the wind remembered names long forgotten. Dakota stood. "Then we bury them here." He turned to Evelyn. "We'll fight in shadow. We'll fight with stone. But we'll need you." "I'm not leaving," she said. "You will lead the bluff line." Her brows lifted. "Lead? You know them," he said. "You've seen how they move. You're not just a settler's daughter anymore. You are something else now." She swallowed hard. The fire crackled, the weight of his words settling over her like dust. No one had ever trusted her like that. No one had ever asked her to stand at the front. She looked around. The old women grinding roots into salves, the boys sharpening spears, the warriors resting with weapons across their knees. They weren't just preparing, they were trusting her life to theirs, and theirs to hers. "I'll hold the bluff," she said finally. "They'll burn before we do." Dakota gave a slow nod. The canyon murmured with wind and ashes, and somewhere in the dark, the land whispered again. "This is where they fall." At dawn, the wind changed. It swept down the canyon in dry gusts, curling through the narrow chasms, carrying with it the sharp scent of pine smoke and blood. The Lakota called it the warning breath, a sign the earth was bracing for war. Evelyn stood high on the ridge, rifle in hand, her boots braced against the crumbling edge of stone. Below, the entrance to the canyon narrowed, a perfect bottleneck, a trap laid not with trickery, but with the land itself. They had only hours. The warriors moved like shadows through the rocks, positioning oil jars, sharpening stone blades, testing bowstrings. Every movement was silent, measured. Wombly marked ranges with ash. Dakota carved war paint onto his arms in long black lines. The elders chanted in the caves, calling the spirits to watch. Evelyn paced the ridge, her thoughts loud in the silence. She had killed. She had survived. But this was different. This was her first war. She stopped when she saw it, dust on the horizon. They were coming. She raised her hand, a single sharp whistle. Every Lakota warrior froze, listening. Then the signal passed silently from ridge to ridge. The canyon tensed like a drawn bow. The outlaws rode hard, pushing their horses, unaware of what waited in the stone. Evelyn watched from the shadows, her breath shallow. She recognized them, scar-faced men with rifles slung loose, whiskey on their breath and hate in their eyes. And at their center rode Elias Crow. His shoulder was bound in bloodied cloth, his face twisted with rage. "They brought 20, Wombly whispered beside her. "But they'll leave none." Crow raised his hand and the outlaws halted. He dismounted, pacing forward, cocky, confident. His voice rang out. "Send the girl out. No more games. No more hiding." Evelyn's hand tightened around the rifle. She stepped forward, onto the ridge in full view. Crow's eyes lit up. "You," he spat, "you should have died with the rest of your kind." Evelyn didn't flinch. "And you should have stayed in the hole the land made for you." Crow laughed, spreading his arms. "I came to finish what I started." Dakota's voice rang from the cliffs. "Then die where you stand." And then the canyon screamed. Flaming arrows lit the sky. Oil jars exploded on the rocks, coating the entrance in fire. The outlaws scattered in panic. Their horses shrieked, rearing against the heat. And from the cliffs, the Lakota warriors rained death, arrows, stones, bullets. Evelyn fired. Her bullet found a rider's chest. He tumbled off his horse, limbs limp. Below, the ground turned to chaos. Crow barked orders, but the canyon had turned against him. Flames boxed them in, ash choking the pass. Dakota and his warriors descended, silent and brutal. It was not battle. It was execution. Evelyn moved with them. She ducked behind stone, reloaded, fired again. A man screamed, hit in the leg, crumpling. She rushed forward, stepping over bodies. Then she saw him. Crow, bleeding, alone, retreating toward the center path. Evelyn chased. "Crow!" she shouted. He turned, his pistol raised. They fired at the same time. His shot grazed her shoulder, just a burn. Hers hit him square in the thigh. Crow dropped to one knee, cursing. Evelyn stood over him, breathing hard. "It's over." Crow looked up, his grin twisted by blood. "You're just another settler girl who don't know her place." She chambered another round. "I found it," she said, "and it ain't beneath you." But she didn't pull the trigger. The earth did. Beneath Crow's knees, the stone gave way. A sinkhole opened. He screamed, grabbing at the edge. But the rock crumbled. He vanished into the earth. The canyon swallowed him whole. Silence fell. Then a cry from above. The ridge was clear. No more riders. No more guns. Only wind and ash. Only victory. Evelyn looked down at her bloodied hands, then to the firelit path ahead. Her story didn't end here. It had only just begun. The smoke still clung to the cliffs, like a ghost unwilling to move on. Evelyn stood in the quiet aftermath, boots planted on scorched soil. Around her, the Lakota tended to their wounded, spoke soft words to the fallen, and sang to the earth. The canyon had protected them, but it had also taken its price in blood. She looked out over Ghost Rock Canyon, its stone walls blackened, its spirit awakened. Wombly approached, a cut above his brow, his steps slow but sure. "It's done," he said. Evelyn nodded, her gaze distant. "For now." "You fought like one of us." I fought because I had no choice. He offered a thin smile. That's how we all start. From the shadows, the old woman, Kanji, stepped forward. She held something wrapped in deer hide. Florence's mother's journal, the one she'd carried since the fire. Evelyn took it with trembling hands. You were always meant to return, Kanji said in a voice like wind over bones. Your blood carries the land's memory. Evelyn opened the journal again, this time not as a daughter searching for answers, but as someone who understood what had been written between the lines. Symbols once meaningless now pulsed with weight, directions, prayers, warnings, truth. She walked to the ridge where Crow had fallen. The earth had already begun to reclaim the place, dust softening the edges, stone whispering its secrets again. Evelyn crouched and pressed her palm into the dirt. I'm still here, she whispered. From behind, Onino's voice came, quiet as dusk. The land has accepted you, but that does not mean peace will follow. She looked up. His eyes held something different now. Not coldness, not challenge, respect. I don't want peace, she said. Not yet. There's more like Crow out there. More towns full of men who think they can burn and take and bury. And what will you do? I'll burn back. He nodded once. Then we walked together. They returned to the village together. What was left of it? The people had already begun to rebuild. Stones were being stacked again, fires rekindled, children laughing under smoke-stained skies. The Lakota had lost much, but they still lived. And now, they had her. That night, Evelyn sat by the fire, war paint still on her face, rifle across her lap. The stars above the canyon seemed brighter than they ever had. The spirits did not speak, but they were there, in the wind, in the flame, in the quiet heartbeat of the land. She didn't know what path tomorrow would bring. Maybe vengeance, maybe healing. But she knew one thing. She wasn't running anymore. She belonged to the land now, and it remembered her name.